And thank you all for joining us tonight. We have a lot to get to in the next hour of the ReidOut, including the latest on Trump's tariff threats and the fear of mass firings at the FBI as the Trump administration demands the names of every agent who worked on the January 6th investigations. And I know many of you are feeling pretty down about all the terrible things happening to our country, which is why tonight we begin bringing you good news amid all the horror. We call it our moment of joy. And that's coming up later in the show. But we begin tonight with a full-on crisis in our democracy, as federal workers are literally locked out of their offices while operatives working for a private citizen essentially take over our government. Their tactics include turning off our federal websites, deleting government-funded research that you, the taxpayer, paid for to impose speech codes, bullying news organizations by demanding interview transcripts, implementing an FBI purge, locking federal workers out of their computers, and even turning them away at their offices while giving themselves, without congressional or any other authorization, full access to the personal data of tens of millions of Americans, including Social Security recipients, FBI agents and officials, military and government contractors, and every single employee of the federal government. All of that data in private hands that you did not authorize, even if you voted for Donald Trump. This as Trump installs unqualified minions at the heads of every federal agency, knowing that they wouldn't stop this even if they knew how. At least when he's not threatening multiple trade wars or vowing to launch a new age of American imperialism by colonizing the indigenous people of Greenland and the Panama Canal, all while congressional Democrats issue strongly worded letters, plus holding a press conference today, and congressional Republicans sit back and let the federal government they work for collapse all around them, while they occasionally beg Trump for tariff mercy for their states. If this were happening in any other country right now, I promise you, I'd be on the air calling it a coup. This was the scene today at the United States Agency for International Development, better known as USAID, where protests erupted after workers were ordered by email, if they could even access their emails, to not report to the office and to work from home instead, despite the so-called DOGE directives just a week ago that all workers must work from the office 5 days a week. A group of Senate and House Democrats were blocked from even entering the agency's headquarters in Washington, D.C. Here's one of the hundreds of USAID employees who lost access to their computer system overnight.
You just don't feel safe. I took my pride flags down. I took my decorations down. I took any books I felt that would be, remotely indicative of my position off my desk. And still, I guess the big thing is that Friday we heard that DOGE was in here, and then Saturday all the websites went down, and then I lost access to everything that I had on my computer. I've never felt so disempowered or disrespected as I have in the past 12 days in the walls of somewhere that I love so much.
USAID is by law an independent agency. It provides crucial aid overseas to fund education and to fight starvation and disease. But now, unelected billionaire Elon Musk, who is heading Trump's drive to shrink the federal government, is determined to shut it down. Today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirmed to reporters traveling with him in Central America that he is now the acting administrator of USAID.
I'm the acting director of USAID. I've delegated that authority to someone, but I stay in touch with him. And again, our goal was to go in and align our foreign aid to the national interest. But if you go to mission after mission and embassy after embassy around the world, you will often find that in many cases, USAID is involved in programs that run counter to what we're trying to do in our national strategy with that country or with that region.
Rubio did not name the someone who he has delegated his authority to. This is the work of unnamed members of DOGE, well, some unnamed, the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, which I cannot stress enough, does not exist, as it was never created by Congress, but which is barging into federal office after federal office anyway, demanding entry and access to the computers. When the DOGE people arrived at USAID on Friday, they forced their way in and gained that access, as they have already done and at other offices of the federal government, the Office of Personnel Management and the Treasury Department, where they gained access to our Social Security files and the contents of everything everyone working for the federal government put into their job applications and their applications for security clearances, their financial information, personal information, information about their families, and more. All of that private data is now in the hands of people that you didn't vote for and didn't give permission to have it. Effectively, Elon Musk, an unelected billionaire oligarch, now has access to the personal data of millions, really tens of millions of Americans, and the data of his competitors, his business competitors, giving his companies an unprecedented advantage in their existing and likely future lucrative government contracts while they develop and exploit AI technology. Is that what you voted for? The Office of Personnel Management has been completely taken over by Elon's cronies. Elon forced out the head of the Federal Aviation Administration and the highest-ranking career official at the Treasury Department, Derek Lebrick, who reportedly resigned after refusing to hand Musk's lackeys the keys to the government's entire payment system and the $6 trillion in payments that the system processes every year. And it's not just Elon. Some of these so-called DOGE officials, including people barely out of college who, and I cannot stress this enough, report to these private individuals, not to the American people. We know very little about them, but some appear to have connections to fellow white South African oligarch Peter Thiel, J.D. Vance's sole former employer. Over the past 2 weeks, which kind of feels like it's been 2 years, we have learned just how fragile our democracy is and how relatively easy it is for someone who's determined and really well-funded to steal and corrupt it. If you are going to write a playbook for how to steal a democracy in less than 20 days, it would sure look a lot like this. Let's bring in Vaughn Hilliard, White House correspondent for NBC News, for the latest. I want to start with this question of what authority Elon Musk actually has. The White House official said today that Elon Musk is serving in the Trump administration as a special government employee, neither a volunteer nor a full-time employee. Have you ever heard of a special government employee? And if you have, what is that?
It's supposed to give an individual 130 days to serve in the federal government. Exactly the extent to which an individual like Elon Musk, Joy, has security clearance and just how high of a security clearance level, that is an outstanding question that we have. But I'll refer folks to an executive order that President Trump signed on the night of his inauguration, January 20th, that gave him and the White House counsel's office the authority to grant the highest security clearance level to any individual who they so desired. Because if you go back to 8 years ago, in 2017, 2018, there was a great many dozens of individuals who Donald Trump wanted to give top security clearances to, but were held up through the FBI because of questions about their backgrounds. And that grew to the frustration. And that led to ultimately Donald Trump signing that executive order on night number one. And now what you're looking at is Elon Musk and several individuals who are working and associated with him who are effectively demanding access into highly sensitive personnel data and parts of, for example, USAID headquarters that are not normally accessible to just any government employee.
And I want to go into this because Wired has done actually a lot of really good reporting, and they actually named 6 people, one of whom I think is still in college, and these are people who don't work for the federal government. It's hard to believe they have security clearances of any kind. Elon Musk has essentially banned people from Twitter, literally blocked their accounts and deleted their accounts for renaming those people, right? For naming those, identifying those people. This was journalism that happened that apparently they're not allowed to do that, right? And those people work for him. It's not a crime to do journalism and name those people if those people are gaining access to USAID and other places. Can you talk about what else is in that Wired story? And I don't know if you had this reporting as well, but that Elon Musk is making decisions about what he wants to get rid of based on not research, but maybe what he's actually getting on Twitter, like content that he's getting?
Right. We know that Elon Musk takes a lot of what he knows based off of what is being talked about on his own platform, X. I was provided 3 of those names of those young individuals who are, to our understanding, over the age of 18, but recent high school grads, college grads, who effectively have been brought into the government under OPM by Elon Musk. And there were 3 particular individuals who I was provided the names of as having had access to USAID offices. And why is this important outside of just individuals who previously didn't have experience in the government coming in within 2 weeks of this new administration and having vast access to personnel files? Well, it's the consternation that is caused internally in the offices. With USAID, effectively, thousands of employees have either been fired, furloughed, or placed on administrative leave. And those that are still there, just in the last hours, I've been getting messages from several of them that have said that they have lost email access, they have lost internal network access, and effectively USAID has been crippled and brought to a halt. And in those hours since all of this developed, just this afternoon, as you were alluding to, Joy, Elon Musk was on X explicitly saying that there was a Twitter account that broke the law in his version of events for naming 6 of the individuals who are working for Doge. Of course, there is no law that has been broken for naming those individuals. He removed that account off of X himself, but the D.C. acting attorney, U.S. attorney, just tonight, again, this is not somebody that is Senate confirmed, but somebody who was is a very close Trump ally who was placed in after inauguration to be the acting U.S. attorney here in D.C., actively said that they are looking at investigating and prosecuting individuals who are seeking to, quote, target or impede Doge employees' efforts. And so the extent to which we're looking at Elon Musk essentially having a stand-down order to not just USAID employees, but individuals from Treasury or every other agency to not impede his efforts, I don't think that you could seek or have a stronger statement made from that than a U.S. attorney saying, if you get in the way of Elon Musk or any individuals working for him, we are going to seek to ultimately prosecute you.
Are you talking about Ed Martin?
Ed Martin, that's correct, Joy.
Ed Martin, who is the acting U.S. attorney, and I'm going to put this on the screen. I don't know if we have it. I have a copy of it here. He sent out a letter saying, Dear Elon, please see this important letter. We will not tolerate threats against Doge workers or law-breaking by the disgruntled. All the best, Ed Martin. And this while Elon Musk has the potential to take the personal data of anyone that he wants inside the federal government. OPM stands for Office of Personnel Management, basically the HR department of all the federal government. He now has that access to that data, as do these 6 young people who work for him. It is radical and very unusual. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard, thank you very much. Excellent reporting. Before they were blocked from entering USAID headquarters today, congressional Democrats blasted the Trump administration and Elon Musk's illegal maneuver.
We don't have a 4th branch of government called Elon Musk.
We are witnessing a constitutional crisis. This is what the beginning of dictatorship looks like.
You cannot wave away an agency that you don't like or that you disagree with by executive order or by literally storming into the building and taking over the servers.
Let's not pull any punches about why this is happening. Elon Musk makes billions of dollars based off of his business with China. And China is cheering at this action today.
One of those Democrats, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, joins me now. Congresswoman, I want to start with this question of members of Congress, people who work for the American people, including yourself. How is it possible that you all were not allowed to enter a government building?
Yeah, I mean, that is the $100 question. What we are seeing literally is the executive deciding that they are going to run everything and create a constitutional crisis and take away the constitutional rights that we have as members of Congress, not only to do oversight in regards to different departments within the federal government, but also the constitutional right that we have to allocate resources and to fund the government and to know where that money is going and to create protections for the people that work for the federal government.
Let me just make it clear, because I think one of the challenges that Democrats have here is that people just don't know what all of these government agencies actually do, right? And so when you say USAID was raided by a bunch of kids from Elon's company, people go, well, what is that? So I wanted to start with just the basics, because, I mean, you obviously came to this country at 17. You were born in Mogadishu in Somalia. I mean, there was real crisis there. You were a little kid, so you wouldn't necessarily know what USAID specifically might have done for you. But what does USAID do, as you understand it, as a member of Congress?
Yeah, I actually, when I came to the country when I was 12, but when we lived in the refugee camp, you know, we got resources from USAID. So essentially what USAID does is it provides things like food to refugees who are escaping war, just as they are doing to the folks who survived genocide in Darfur, in Chad, who are no longer going to be able to get those resources. They come in when there is a natural disaster, and they help with infrastructure, rebuilding of infrastructure. USAID also makes sure things like HIV and AIDS aid gets to folks who are dealing with those kind of diseases. It's an overarching system. It also helps folks that are fighting for freedom, for liberty in their countries by providing educational services. And so many people, not just those of us who are in Congress, but around the world, a lot of leaders really appreciate the incredible work that USAID does. And now there's going to be a huge donut hole. And I just, you played earlier an employee of USAID who was talking about being disrespected. The level of disrespect actually is criminal, because there are crisis response teams that are around the world that really rely on having access to their emails, having access to apps that they can utilize if there's danger to them. All of those accesses are cut off. So we might actually see somebody get killed. An American who works for the American government might be harmed in some of those countries that they're operating in. And so not only is this an illegal move by Elon Musk and the Trump administration in taking away and gutting USAID, but it's also actually endangering Americans around the world.
And I want to note that USAID also was crucial in helping to overturn apartheid in South Africa, which is where Elon Musk and Peter Thiel are from. I just want to note that. Last question here, because you are from the House of Representatives, the body that actually is in charge of deciding how our money is spent. Is there action that the House can take, number one, to force Marco Rubio to disclose the name of this person to whom he has given his administrative authority now that he claims he's in charge of USAID, or to block Elon Musk, et cetera, from moving USAID under the Department of State, because that's also Congress's job. They can't just do that.
Yeah, I mean, the problem that we have right now is that Republicans control the House and the Senate. In order for Congress to sue, it is the Speaker that gets to decide to sue on our behalf. And right now, the Republicans are acting very cowardly. They can't find their spine. They are delegating their constitutional responsibility to the executive branch from the legislative branch. They are part of this constitutional crisis. They are going along with these illegal actions. And we knew when you elect a criminal to the presidency that you are enabling for criminal actions to take place in this country. And that is what we are witnessing at the moment. And the checks and balances that are supposed to exist in Congress exercising its duty currently is not happening. So Democrats are utilizing the court system to push back, and hopefully we'll be successful.
We appreciate anything being done at this point. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, thank you very, very much. And up next, much more on the Trump administration's dramatic and likely illegal, I mean, I'm saying likely, to be kind, takeover of USAID and the looming threat to other government agencies. Don't go anywhere. As Elon Musk continues to wage his campaign to delete the existence of USAID, he's also working to terminate other agencies. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that he and Donald Trump, and in many ways, honestly, it's not clear who works for who, they're also threatening or looking to shut down all of the functions of the Department of Education. The directive would come in an executive order, which they are delaying until Linda McMahon, the head of World Wrestling Entertainment, I promise you I'm not making that up, can be confirmed by the Senate as Secretary of Education. Now, this is the part where I remind you that Congress created the Department of Education, and only Congress can get rid of the Department of Education or any other federal agency. And yet, according to the Wall Street Journal, some of Musk's representatives have already been working out of the main Education Department building in Washington, because why not? Joining me now is Senator Andy Kim of New Jersey, a member of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, which oversees the Department of Education. He's also a former USAID employee. Earlier today, he tried to speak with the acting director of the agency, but was denied entry. Thank you so much for being here. I want to start with USAID and work my way back to some of these other divisions. You worked for USAID. We talked a little bit with Representative Ilhan Omar about the kind of work they do. Marco Rubio, who now apparently is both Secretary of State and the head of USAID, has said that there is someone that he's empowered to begin a process of reviewing all of this work. Apparently, that person is Peter Marocco, somebody who allegedly was at the January 6th insurrection. He is the person that Rubio has sent a letter saying that this is the person that's going to be in charge. Does that need authorization from Congress?
Well, everything that they're doing right now is just geared towards undermining this institution that is codified in statute by the U.S. Congress. Their actions to try to reorganize as well as dismantle USAID is illegal. And that was something that I tried to raise when I went to USAID today. I mean, I walked through those doors of USAID over 20 years ago for my very first day working for the federal government. I was so proud to be able to serve the country in that way, and to demonize these public servants, to try to take this incredibly important national security tool that we have off the table when we have real threats emanating from Russia, China, and elsewhere. You know, this is something that's just going to make our country less safe and really shows the undermining of rule of law in our nation.
I want to talk to you just a little bit about the seeming ideologies that are percolating among the people who are trying to take over our government. According to Semaphore, one of the people that is being elevated to fill a key State Department role is someone named Darren Beatty. Darren Beatty, who was fired from the first Trump administration for having some associations with white nationalists. He has posted things on X Twitter. This is back in October of 2024. Competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work. Competent white men must be in charge. In January, he's done January 6 tweets. Ibram Kendi, this is a man who is a black intellectual, that does anti-racism work, needs to learn his place and take a knee to MAGA. Learn his proper role in our society. Ibram Kendi is black. Tim Scott, black senator from South Carolina, needs to learn his place and take a knee to MAGA. BLM, Black Lives Matter, must take a knee to MAGA. They must learn their place. Kay Cole James of Heritage Foundation, a conservative woman who was running the Heritage Foundation, needs to learn her natural place and take a knee to MAGA. So this man has named black people, liberal and conservative, including pro-Trump Republicans, and said these black people need to learn their place and that competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work. That guy's at state. Any issues with that?
Well, and not just that he's at state, but I believe he's being nominated for an undersecretary of state position. You know, meanwhile, he is somebody who has said that the Uyghurs, the atrocities against the Uyghurs in China hasn't happened. He is somebody that talked about how, we shouldn't be getting involved in supporting Taiwan. This is something that we see just across the board. And when Trump is talking about, or Elon Musk is talking about, we need to make sure people are rising up when it's based off of merit, you see that that's absolutely not what their motivation actually is. They're demonizing public servants that have worked in difficult and dangerous places around the world. Meanwhile, they're elevating people like the person you just mentioned, that is clearly, it's about loyalty and it's about people who will do whatever Trump and Elon Musk tell them to do.
Yeah, the men that they're elevating are from the Real World Boston and Fox Weekends. I'm really not sure they're hiring the most competent.
Yeah, where did the meritocracy come from when it came to that?
Yeah, they have the right demographics for the connection, apparently. I want to move on to Elon Musk himself. You worked for USAID. This is what Elon Musk has said about USAID. USAID is a criminal organization. Time for it to die. USAID is evil. USAID was a viper's nest of radical left Marxists who hate America. USAID is a criminal organization. One wonders if maybe it's some resentment for USAID having helped to overthrow the white South African government in where he grew up, the right-wing white South African government. I don't know if that's it. I really couldn't tell you what his motivations are. But your thoughts on that, and him also claiming that it's a crime for Wired magazine to have divulged through journalism who he has running basically the government, these young people, and the new acting U.S. attorney from D.C. essentially threatening anyone who does any investigations of Elon Musk's Doge.
I mean, this is something that we see just across the board that is just so worrisome. I mean, first and foremost, it harkens back to what we heard during the campaign when President Trump talked about the enemy from within. You know, that effort where they clearly are targeting inwards and trying to make Americans the enemy of other Americans. And that is just the kind of divisiveness that is just so damaging. And I just want to say to the workers at USAID, as someone who worked there at USAID, I appreciate what they have done, and I'm sorry for what they're going through as we see a president disrespecting workers of his own executive branch, and this kind of demonization is something that is absolutely wrong. And what we see also is the empowering of these people working for Mr. Musk that are going in, you know, not having the security clearance that is needed to be able to do this. If they're doing this at USAID and trying to access classified information there, we know that that's happening at the Pentagon. We know that's probably happening at the State Department through the intelligence community. We deserve to know if Secretary Hegseth, Secretary Rubio, and others have given access to these people and what it is that they are looking at. These are the American people's documents, our secrets, our efforts that we recognize that people's lives are on the line when it comes to classified information, and we deserve answers about that.
And think about the chilling effect of every single person at USAID and USAID knowing that Elon Musk potentially has their data and could post it on X Twitter anytime he wanted, or could, you know, dox them. There's nothing that he couldn't do if he's got all of your data. Even if you like Trump, you need to think about the fact that he has all your data and can turn off your Social Security payments and do whatever they want with your data. I'll give you the final word very quickly, Senator. Sorry.
Well, and I think one thing that you pointed out is that right now it's about USAID, but what about tomorrow? What about next week? You know, this is their playbook. This is the canary in the coal mine where they're saying, hey, look, if we can get away with this for USAID, FBI is next, or Department of Education is next. So I just ask the American people, pay attention to this. They may not know a lot about USAID, but when it comes to the undermining of our democracy, you know, this is what's at stake right now.
This is a coup, period. Senator Andy Kim of New Jersey, thank you. Coming up, the purge at the FBI with the Trump administration forcing out senior executives at the Bureau and hunting through case files to identify and review anyone who worked on a January 6th case. We'll be right back. I am old enough to remember all the way back to 4 days ago when Donald Trump's pick for FBI director, prolific right-wing podcast guest Kash Patel, made this claim concerning any retribution against prosecutors and FBI agents who worked on criminal investigations involving Trump or the January 6th insurrectionists.
Will you commit that you will not tolerate the firing of the FBI agents who worked with the special counsel's office on these investigations?
Senator, I appreciate the time to visit with you.
It is a yes or no answer, and it is your first test.
Senator, every FBI employee will be held to the absolute same standard, and no one will be terminated for case assignments.
And I'm not going to accept that answer, because if you can't commit that those FBI agents will be protected from political retribution, we can't accept you as FBI director.
All FBI employees will be protected against political retribution. They deserve.
Patel has yet to have his confirmation vote yet, but it appears that his word will be worth about as much as a diploma from Trump University. At this very moment, the FBI is facing the potential of a massive purge. We're talking about thousands of agents, all for simply doing their jobs. This afternoon was the deadline for FBI employees to fill out a questionnaire from Trump officials about whether they had any involvement in these investigations. Mind you, the January 6th probe was the largest criminal investigation in history. Already, some agents have started to pack up their desks out of fear that mass firings are imminent. And it comes after the Trump administration forced out several senior FBI officials and January 6th prosecutors on Friday, including the head of the D.C. field office. Joining me now is Norm Eisen, the former White House chief ethics lawyer under President Obama. He is chair of State Democracy Defenders Fund, which represents DOJ and FBI employees affected. He's also co-founder of a new publication called The Contrarian. Mr. Eisen, thank you so much for being here. I want to just read this piece of NBC News reporting. Acting FBI Director Brian Driscoll on Friday refused a Justice Department order that he assist in the firing of agents involved in January 6 riot cases, pushing back so forcefully that some FBI officials feared he would be dismissed. Is that the kind of person that you are now representing? And tell me about the cases that you're taking on.
Joy, at Democracy Defenders, we're so proud to work with men and women of the FBI and DOJ as they come under this heinous and unlawful assault simply for doing their jobs. If you think about the Trump administration having pardoned the insurrectionists of January 6th, including many violent criminals, and now turning their ire against the law enforcement officials at the DOJ and FBI, who are simply doing their jobs in the finest tradition, nonpartisan public service, protecting the American public. It's just unacceptable. And I think Mr. Driscoll's strong statement that he will follow the law and refuse to engage in any prohibited personnel practices. I think that represents the best tradition of the FBI and DOJ.
Let me read some more NBC News reporting. NBC spoke with one of the January 6 prosecutors who was fired on Friday. Quote, "We've all been looking over our shoulders like, is this the day we're going to get fired? Because we were doing our jobs." The fired prosecutor told NBC News, "We've been forced to dismiss all of the cases that we've been working on, all of these people that were very violent offenders. It's been awful." The person who asked that their name not be used for fear of retaliation said it was discouraging to be fired after seeing Trump pardon these violent rioters who attacked police officers. We are now seeing everything turned on its head, Norm Eisen. We're seeing the villains on January 6th raised up as some sort of heroes by Trump, and the people who did their jobs prosecuting those people and arresting them and tracking them down really being hunted. What are the biggest fears of your clients? Is it fear that someone like Kash Patel will come in and try to initiate random investigations against them? What are their fears? That they are going to be prosecuted for having prosecuted January 6th insurrectionists?
Well, I think that not just the individuals that I'm working with in law enforcement, but Americans generally understand the greatest fear is for our democracy. This is a nation of laws. You can't engage in this kind of retribution. Even Kash Patel, with whom I have the most profound disagreements, testified under oath that retribution is wrong. He should speak out now because that's what's clearly happening. What other possible reason could there be for this demand for information about the individuals who worked on these cases? We've never seen anything like this in the modern history of America. It's contrary to the Constitution and laws. I don't think the American people will tolerate it, and I don't think the courts will tolerate it.
I want to read from a letter from your group to Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Beauvais, who, of course, was one of Donald Trump's defense lawyers in the the New York hush money case. Most concerning, it has been reported that the Justice Department is planning to publicly disseminate the names of those employees they plan or will be actually terminating, despite the risk of stigmatization. This sounds like a direct threat to these people's safety and lives. If they release their names, we know what will happen when those names hit X, Twitter, and other right-wing social media.
It's so wrong, Joy, to repay the dedicated service of our law enforcement officials, protecting us all, when you already have these hundreds of individuals whose sentences have been commuted or who've been pardoned, who are now out on the streets, plus so many others who have a propensity for violence or for risk. And then to put these names out there, no. That must not happen. It's wrong, and every legal measure will be taken to protect these brave law enforcement officials and attorneys.
We've already seen what's happened to January 6th heroic officers and their mothers, including in the part of Michael Fanone's mom, that they've been subject to death threats and attacks. So we know what will happen if those names of FBI officials are released. Norma Eisen, thank you very much. And up next, private citizens are standing up to Trump with large protests across the country against Trump's deportations. We'll be back. We are beginning to see what the resistance to Trump is starting to look like, with demonstrations against his migrant deportation operations all across America this weekend. In Los Angeles, thousands blocked traffic, temporarily shutting down the 101 freeway in a show of unity for those most at risk. The demonstrations to fight for immigrants come as people are asking, what are the Democrats in Washington doing? Well, this weekend, the Democratic National Committee elected Ken Martin, the party leader in Minnesota, as its new chair. You also have some young blood being added to the committee, with the DNC also electing new vice chairs, including Pennsylvania State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta, who joins me now. Malcolm, it is good to see you. Congratulations on being elected as a vice chair. And we know David Hogg was also elected as a vice chair. What does that mean for what power you'll actually have in the party to shape their communications, their messaging, and their strategy?
So thank you so much, Joy. And listen, let me start here. There have been so many people who have tried to write obituaries about the Democratic Party. But what you saw in National Harbor wasn't a funeral. It was a revival. You saw Democrats from across all 50 states and our 7 territories in one place, united on moving this country and moving this party in a direction that centers who we must center, and that's working families like mine all across this country. We are in a moment right now where Democrats have to and must, and under the leadership of our new chair, are going to be fighting everywhere we can. And it starts with the 3-point plan that Leader Martin laid out. We're going to be building to win everywhere, looking at expanding this party. That means investing in state parties, investing in county parties so that they can recruit and support our candidates. But also, we have to build a party that's built to last. And so we're going to be engaging in a plan to lay out what the next 10 years looks like for the Democratic Party. But at the core of it, everything we do is about how we make life better for working people and working families.
Let me push back a little bit. I want to play. This is Ken Martin. You just mentioned him. He's the new chair. Here's some sound of him.
We have one team. One team. That's right. The Democratic Party. We have one fight. We have one fight. The fight's not in here. The fight's out there, right? The fight's not in here. The fight is for our values. The fight is for working people. The fight right now is against Donald Trump and the billionaires who bought this country. That's the fight not in here.
Okay, I guess that sounds good. It sounds like good rhetoric. I think a lot of people are noting that most of the people who did run were, white dudes, and white men only voted 38% Democratic, so they don't. He doesn't really represent. And white women, 46% voted Democratic, 53% voted for Trump. Black men, obviously, and black women voted heavily for Kamala Harris. Latinas also for Harris. Latino men went the other way, 54-44. But demographically, what is the actual plan to not do rhetoric about fighting for working people, but change the way the Democratic Party approaches people? Because the Democratic Party for a lot of people sounds like a lot of policy and a lot of wonkery, but not a lot of action. Whatever the Republican Party has morphed into as far right and radical as they've become, they represent action. How does the Democratic Party start to show that they're doing something, not just doing rhetoric?
Well, let me tell you something, Joy. The Democratic Party just elected in pretty resounding fashion as well a black kid named Malcolm Kenyatta from North Philly. And so I think that this is a party and a leadership team that looks like this country. They also elected Artie Blanco, another vice chair, an incredible leader in the labor movement. And so these are folks who have a history of standing up for working people, a record to show for it, and who have vision for what the next stage of our party is going to be. And here's what it is. You know, you are hitting on something that my sister said to me that I'll never forget. She said, you know, Donald Trump lies with more confidence than Democrats tell the truth. And here's the truth. The Democratic Party is the party of working people and working families. And we're a party that's not going to spend the next 4 years somehow apologizing for being Democrats, somehow apologizing for wanting to protect Medicare and Social Security, apologizing for standing with organized labor, apologizing for protecting people's fundamental rights to be who they are, make decisions about their own bodies. We're not going to do that. But we also are going to be a party, Joy, that looks local. Everything that matters in people's life is not happening in Washington, D.C. And so we have to care just as much about school board races as we do about Senate contests. And that's the type of Democratic Party that you're going to see under this leadership team.
I want you to come back because I want to talk about how you fight a radical movement with politics. And I'm not sure that you can do that. But I would love to have that conversation with you. So we'll keep talking. New DNC Vice Chair, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Malcolm Kenyatta, congratulations and thank you. And up next, a much needed moment of joy. It has been a rough couple of weeks, to say the least. But on this show, we want to leave you with a moment of joy. And what better way to kick it off than with the Grammy Awards? The ceremony was full of exciting and historic moments. You had Kendrick Lamar taking home 5 Grammys in tuxedo, no less. And artist Doechii became the 3rd woman ever to win Best Rap Album, giving a powerful speech. Political statements, Lady Gaga telling the trans community they are not invisible, Shakira dedicating her win to immigrants, and Alicia Keys saying DEI is a gift, not a threat. But of course, the moment of the night was this. Moment of joy inside with Jen Psaki starts now.